Greetings, family, and welcome to this third episode of the Adventist Africa Heritage Series. And we are talking about the movement of the Advent message, the everlasting gospel, into the African hinterland. We were on episode 2. If you missed it, go back and watch it. How the gospel landed on the continent of Africa, particularly in the southern African continent, and how it spread into the hinterland. And today we're exploring even further how the gospel landed in the modern country of Zimbabwe, the house of stone. I think it was going back to where it came from, if I can use that phrase. And with me here is Paul Sibanda, an author, an evangelist, and a historian. Greetings, my brother, and how are you?
I'm good, thanks, and yourself.
We continue on this journey.
It's getting even more interesting now.
We are crossing the Limpopo now.
Limpopo now on the other side.
Yes, so Zimbabwe is a very fascinating country for the gospel, sitting just north of South Africa and being a former British colony, being a place where there are powerful kingdoms that were at play and powerful nations. Even one of the kings that ran away from Zululand found himself in Zimbabwe with the nation of Mtwagas, the Ndebele people. They are the Munumutapas there. The first Portuguese trade escapades from the east are recorded in Zimbabwe. Great nation. A nation that was not only built on stone, but was also doing mining. You know, iron was not uncommon in that territory. But tell us how and when the Adventist message landed into that country.
Okay, thank you. And greetings to the viewers. All right, so now we're now in Zim.
Yes.
Well, I want to start by saying most people think Adventism began in Zimbabwe. Not South, and they think maybe Zim because of the numbers and everything and the quality and quantity of Adventism in Zim. But actually, Zim is a recipient of South Africa, South African Adventism, because Adventism, as we talked before, began in South Africa and then it started spreading out. So it begins with South African missionaries.
Okay.
Yeah. So 1893, at the General Conference, 1893, I think it was in Battle Creek. Yeah. So we had two of the Wessels family members.
Yes.
Peter Wessels is the one that is the Great Light. So it's him and his brother Johannes. They are at the General Conference. They would go there. I mean, they had the monies, remember, diamonds and stuff. So they would go there as delegates. So they went there. And remember, 1893, Ellen G. White is still alive, and the pioneers, John Love Bras, and all those other guys.
Yes,
they are there. And these guys are there representing Africa.
Africa, yeah.
So as they discuss, about issues of how to spread, remember it was mission. Adventism is born out of mission. We can do other things, but mission is the key. So they're talking about mission. How can we spread the Advent message? So these guys are the ones that came with the idea. Gentlemen, don't you think that we've been, taking too much time in South Africa, the whites? Why can't we do something for blacks? Okay. This is Peter Wessels.
So he's advocating that we need to move to the other nations and kindreds and tongues.
We have helped them here and there, but they don't have a mission for them. Yeah, they've got this Malayana, but then they don't have a mission, a real mission.
Yeah.
So they advocate for this, and they say to show you guys that we are serious, they put money on the table. Again,
okay,
that is the money that we're putting to show that we are serious about this.
We want this agenda to be completed.
So that was in 1893. So then it was reported back to South Africa, and the church in the Cape also put in money.
Okay.
So they said, okay, we want to have a mission that is north of the Cape Colony. So they had no Zimbabwe in mind, no Rhodesia in mind.
Okay.
They wanted
just north of the Orange River.
Yes, just north for their brethren, their black brethren.
Okay.
So now the church in the Cape, which was the strongest, buys into the idea. They also put in, because you have to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
So they also said, you know what, this is a good idea. We are also putting this much.
Yeah.
So now there's money that is left at the General Conference. Now there's money that is being collected in South Africa, and specifically in the Cape Towns, and and then okay, fine, this thing is moving. What do we do? Okay, guys, you need to go and see CJR, Cecil John Rhodes. Mighty Cecil John Rhodes.
He's still in the Cape.
He's stationed in the Cape.
He's still dreaming of Cape to Cairo.
He's still thinking of how he can maneuver from
to
Cape
get up to Cairo.
Yes.
All right.
So remember, he was the director of the chair of a South African company, mining company and stuff. So he's there. That
was the DBSA.
Yes.
Yes.
So he's there. So these guys go. Peter Wessels is, when you talk of Adventist, black Adventism in Africa, you cannot speak about it and leave Peter Wessels. It would be very unfair to the history.
Yes.
He's there. So he goes with Pastor Robinson. Remember, the pastor who came first with the message, 1887.
Hunt, yes.
So he's there. So they go to Cape Town, and when they go there, they find him seated in his office. Gets there, he's busy doing what he's doing. Oh, guys, how can I help you guys? Okay, we're here. We're looking for land. Land for what? For a mission. So remember, this guy. This is interesting. Cecil John Rhodes had said a statement that I would rather fund missionaries than soldiers.
Okay.
So Cecil John Rhodes had his dream. Yeah, he was not much into Christianity and stuff. He had his dream, and his dream could only be accomplished when people are Christianized.
Okay, because he understood that the gospel message unites people.
Yes.
Rather than divide.
So the soldiers would make a mess out of people, and people would start retaliating and stuff. So make them Christians, they become good people, then he can maneuver and do his things. So I guess
maybe that's why certain Africans hate Christians, because they believe we were used as a vehicle for colonization of Africa.
Yeah.
Would you believe that? So I'm putting you on the spot on this one.
Okay. No, it's fine, because I think it was an individual thing. There were people that were using the gospel for their own benefits. And this guy is one of them. This guy is one of those people. But then it's unfair to say the Christians came here to use the Bible. It's very unfair. There were individuals, that is correct.
Yeah.
That way, actually, because these guys were miners. Remember, there were people that came here for
purely exploration.
Mining, and they realized, okay, so if we Christianize people, then the eye for an eye thing is out. I can do harm to them. They will give me another cheek. So that's what they were using.
Yes.
But then I would like to say most of the missionaries that came were actually genuine people who were pushing obviously the devil had his own people that were taking advantage of this gospel.
But just Africa. To put it into perspective there and I want you to pick up the idea of Cecil Jones sitting in his office, but just to connect the dots, 1844, the message had gone out. Behold, he cometh.
Yes.
Prepare for him. And the Advent message was raised to preach what we believe is the final call. The everlasting gospel in the book of Revelation. And they are attempting to, and they are praying and they are trying to go to the ends of the world. So the drive by these guys, Robinson, Hunt, and others to come to Cecil Rhodes to receive permission is because they understood politically the landscape says this guy has got power in Zimbabwe. Because remember, his company had already gone to explore. And they'd gone to meet the Togas, Mzilikazi and his people, and they had kind of understood Moffat was facilitating that for his mission work as well. He had been there earlier, the London Missionary Society. So for Adventists, the goal was mission, to spread the everlasting gospel to every kindred, to every tongue and every people. And the gospel was clear: fear God and give him glory, for the hour of his judgment has come. and worship him who created the heavens and the earth and the fountains of the water. And the warning was going out, fallen, fallen, Babylon is, and has become a habitation of. And the call was come out. So they are calling people from systems that are fallen, including African traditional systems that were not worshipping God the same way, but were honoring ancestors. They were also worshipping God not in the biblical way that's said. Christ was the intermediator. So they are coming with that agenda to spread the gospel. But obviously the politics of the land during that time made Cecil Rhodes.
Yeah, that was very powerful. And
so take us from that office and the journey to the then country that he named after himself.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so they go there, like you're saying. So the church they knew that the political powers, that if you want things to work, you need to, go, know that they're there.
Yes, know the offices.
Know the offices. So they went there. That was a good idea. So when they got there, they told him what they want to do. And during that time, Cecil John Rhodes had issues with other missionary societies that were there. They were not doing quite the proper thing, but they were getting the finances and stuff. So he had cut this thing of missionaries and giving out resources. So when he asked them, what's your guys' plan? So you know what, we want to have a mission, we want to have a school, we want to train Africans and do this. Then I was like,
sounds exciting.
I like that. So
Yeah.
he changes his perspective. He's like, no, don't worry. This one, I'm in. So what do you want? No, we want land. How much? 12,000 acres. I think they should have said more.
All right.
Then he gave them what they want. So he bends down and he starts writing. He's listening to them, but he's writing. These guys are going in then closes.
So he was writing as they were talking. So the words were coming from their mouth.
Yes.
Cecil was just writing in his own writing.
Cecil was writing to Leander Star Jameson, Dr. Leander Star Jameson, who was governing Blawayo during that time. So then he closes, he seals this thing. He says, you know what? Go and look for Dr. Leander Star Jameson. Give him this letter. Don't
open it on the way. It's sealed.
Yeah. They take it. They are happy. They go.
Yeah.
Now, it's so interesting. History is marvelous. And God works through history. It's wonderful.
He's there.
So, who is Leander Star Jameson? When Peter Wessels heard that name, I was not there, but I'm just thinking. I think he just leapt with joy.
All right.
He knew him.
Okay.
He was actually the doctor to the Wessels family.
All right.
So when he hears...
And the Wessels were friends with him.
Yeah. So when he heard, go and see Dr. Leander Star Jameson, you were like...
Done deal.
They go. Okay, they go and report, this is what happened. And then from there, they actually left. Then they went... But when they got to southern Rhodesia, which is Zimbabwe, they were told, because when they got there, they were like, okay, because the road that time was, the gateway to the north was Botswana.
Yes, you had to go through Bechuana land, Kuruman area. Yes. That was the route.
So when they were going there, they were so excited, telling everybody where they are going. When they got to Bulawayo, they were told, guys, you're looking for land, but we want to give you this advice. Whatever land that you're going to get, make sure that you don't get it close to the Matebele or the Ndebele speaking people. Why? During those days, the Ndebelers had Lobengula's blood running in them. They were so fierce. And they were just,
they would plunder, destroy anyone who says.
So they were told, look for where the Kalangas are. They are peaceful people. And they're like, okay, fine. So they go and see Leander Star Jameson. He just asks them, what happened? They just hand over the letter. He reads and like, you want land? Okay.
Where?
Then they're like, no, anywhere where there is space. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, go this way, west or whatever. And then they go to where Solusi is. They got their 12,000. They marked it. From there they went and filed. They would file these stakes.
Yeah, deeds title deed.
Yeah, title deeds and things like that.
Yeah.
And then they left one guy there, and then they went back to South Africa. So there were four South Africans and 3 Americans that were part of that. But Peter Wessels was the one who was leading this expedition to Solusi.
Yeah.
So when they get there, then the work begins. That's how Solusi started. So it was called the Matebele Mission
Station.
The Matebele Mission.
But there was a crisis at GC when they finally heard how we got the land.
Yes, I was actually about to go there. You know, that's the moment that raises
they rejected the offer, isn't it?
Because back in the USA, there was what they called the Foreign Mission Board.
Yes, the Foreign Mission Board, yeah.
So the Foreign Mission Board was the one that was in charge of all missions that are outside of America.
Yeah.
In America itself. So when they heard that, the report went there that, guys, we've been given a grant. By who? Cecil John Rhodes. Then Alonzo Jones. Yeah, if you do a history, the guys of the guy that brought the 1888 issues,
message,
that guy, he was like, no, because he was the leader. He was like, no.
We can't merge
state and church.
Yeah.
So we are not going to accept that
offer.
And there was an issue. Stephen Haskell was this side in South Africa.
Yes.
Stephen Haskell had to write a letter to Ellen G. White, who was I think it was Australia or New Zealand at the time. I'm not really sure exactly, but she was out of America. Guys, there's an issue here. What does the Lord have to say about this issue?
Yes.
Then she wrote a letter and said, you know what? The resources belong to God.
Yeah.
They might be in the hands of the heathens, but they are for ours. If they are willing to give to us,
we must accept it.
Let's accept. That's how this whole issue died.
Yes.
Because when the messenger of God spoke, that was God speaking. No one would go against it.
Yes.
That's how then.
Yes. It died down and it was accepted.
It was accepted, yes.
George Tripp and his wife were then appointed, isn't it? That was in 1895. He led a team. And I think he became the first president, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of that place, if my history serves me well. But talk to us about Anderson. He was a very key member of that team.
Right.
And not only did he end there, but Anderson then spearheaded the growth of that work, not only in Zimbabwe, but even in Zambia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Anderson, that's when you talk of Anderson, for me, that's my favorite in Africa.
Yeah.
He spent 50 years of his life as a missionary
in this continent. Yeah.
So so what happened was this guy was he was at this college, what do you call it? Andrews. Barrow Creek, sorry. Yeah, that was Barrow Creek before it became Andrews.
Yeah.
So he was there. So the Foreign Mission Board was looking for missionaries to go and start the work. Because these guys had just opened Solusi, but then they needed people with experience and those that are willing. So they set out to the churches in the States. We're looking for people on a voluntary basis.
No salary.
Yeah. You guys, if you live, whatever, if you choose to go to Africa, we don't know when you're going to come back.
Yeah.
So think about it.
Yes.
And then they responded. Anderson was part of that. He had just graduated.
Yeah.
And him and his not wife, it was his girlfriend. Yeah. They actually did not graduate because the graduation time came when they were already this side. Yeah. So they led the team that came in 1895. That started a work that has lasted to this day.
Yeah.
So he's just something.
His girlfriend then was Nora. Yes.
Yeah.
Became his wife.
Yeah, became his wife in the mission, and they did this thing together. He's the one. Unfortunately, in Zimbabwe, someone once asked me somewhere that why is it that Stedvant, that's your Studvant,
yes.
Why is it but it's Stedvant?
Yeah.
Why is it that he's more popular
than
People really don't
Anderson.
know in Zim. They don't really know about Anderson.
No.
So the answer is this.
Yeah.
Stedvant did most of his work in Zim.
Okay.
This guy, his mind was focused. He wanted Africa. Anderson wanted Africa. He even wrote a book on the trail of David Livingstone.
Yes.
He wanted to follow the footsteps wherever David Livingstone went. He did.
He went all the way to Zambia.
Zambia and up there.
Yeah. We'll talk about that one on the Zambian episode.
So he's very key. So that's why most Zimbabweans don't know much about him. But at least we've got schools that are named after him. He
Yeah.
was very massive.
Yeah.
Even Botswana itself, it's him.
Yes.
Yeah.
You went into there. Now, the early work in Zimbabwe starts at Solusi.
Yes.
In your book, you call Solusi the mother of all missions. But by design, this was meant just to be a mission station north of the Orange River,
Yes.
for our brothers.
Yes.
Did it really become a mission to the African people?
Yeah, it became because even your historians, like your American historians, they called Solusi the mother and the Aumona. They call it the hub.
All right.
That all the other, if you sit down right now and think of Rusangu and think of that Barton,
Yeah.
yes. Think of those. Those are there because
Offshoots,
of Solusi. Those are
yeah.
offshoots. So imagine during those days, everyone from up north,
Tanzania, Ethiopia,
up there, they would all come
to Solusi.
And then when whatever they are taught, they'll go back to their countries and implement it. So it was like a hub that was, its rays were going as far and wide.
Yeah. And it did that from the time it was started. We're talking about 1890s.
Yeah, 1894.
Then into the early, and I know the American influence was quite big in its startup.
It was.
But what are some of the first Africans, whether in the church or outside, who began to have an influence in the spread of the gospel around Solusi and into the hinterland?
All right. So there's one man that I love so much. Yeah, his name is Mainza.
Mainza.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a jack of all trades.
Yes.
In the book, I actually call him a moving dictionary.
Okay.
He's the John Jane Andrews of his time.
Wow.
So who's Jane Andrews? Jane Andrews is the one who could memorize the whole of the New Testament and half of the Old Testament. That's the guy where the name Andrews University come from.
All right.
So we had our own Jane Andrews in Africa, Mainza.
All right.
Yeah, he was a moving Bible.
All right.
He was a powerful speaker. At one time, there was a mission station that was close to Solusi. They actually went behind the back of the church and offered him money so that he could transfer and be their man.
Okay.
And he refused.
Yeah.
That's how powerful he was. Where he would preach, it would stick.
Yeah.
So that's one man.
Yeah. And this man was born 1881.
Yeah, and he's
and
Zambian.
Died 1949.
1949, yes.
Yes.
He's Zambian. He was Zambian by origin.
Yes.
So how did he get to
into Zimbabwe?
He came because I remember the Matebele were marauding, and Lobengwela had gone up to Zambia.
Yeah, he had crossed the Zambezi River,
Zambezi, and he was just taking people as slaves back to Bulawayo. So this guy, when then they were released, when the British came and fought against this system, Lobengwela system, they said, okay, everyone,
go back.
Now free.
You're
then
free.
This guy was like, you know what, I'm looking for. I have to get an education. That's how he got himself at Solusi. And he had separated with his mom because they came together with his mother.
As slaves.
Then they separated him from his mother. So then Anderson just saw that this guy, there's something in him. Yes. And then he started, teaching him and everything. Then he's the first person to be baptized as Solusi. And I want to say this boldly, that we need to correct our history.
Okay.
If you read the Solusi story. I think it's the Solusi story that says that in other books that says he was baptized in 1901. But then history seems to say otherwise, because he was baptized in 1900. Why am I saying this? We have the person who baptized him by name, Fred Mead.
All right.
Fred Mead died in October of 1901 on his way to Cape Town. Actually, he caught a flu. Then he died of pneumonia.
As he was on his way
out. On
his
way to Cape Town for a leaders meeting. This guy was baptized in December.
The previous year.
Yeah. So other books say he was baptized in December 1901.
Okay.
But the person who baptized him was dead in October.
So he can't have been baptized in December.
Yes, that's where my argument is.
So it was just a year's difference.
Yeah, so it's 1900. December 1900.
And when he was there, he picked up his name. He says he chose to name himself James.
Yes.
Or Jim.
Yes. So that was the culture of the day. So it was like when you get baptized, they would change your name.
Yes.
But they ask you, what name do you want? A biblical name.
Yeah.
So he chose James, and then he became known as Jim. Yeah. To this day.
And his father was Hikabasa.
Yes.
That's a Zambian name.
That's a Zambian name.
Yes.
That's a Zambian name.
And so Jim gets baptized, and you mentioned rightfully here, and he becomes the first famous preacher. Now, you talk here also that perhaps Jim could be the father of another African strategy for gospel preaching, which is unique to Zimbabwe, called the Zunde strategy. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, he's the father of the Zundes.
Okay.
You know, he turned Blawayo and Matabele upside down. This guy. He's the guy who also used to move with Anderson.
Okay.
At one time, they even went back, because when Anderson was in Zambia, he located his father.
Ikabasa.
Yes. And then he told him, he went back and came with him just to show where his father was. And then there was that great reunion.
Wow.
He preached even in Zambia.
All right.
Like he would turn around tables.
Yeah.
He would just turn around tables. He is one of the first cow porters. He's the first African cow porter. To
preach and teach the gospel.
You know, there's a time when he wanted to become a cow porter, but then the law said you needed to have a permit. And he didn't have the money. It was expensive.
To get the permit.
He was even thinking of going to sell cows until he found help.
Yes.
And he was good at cow portering. He was good at preaching. He was good at teaching. Yeah. He was just a jack of all trades.
Yeah. You mentioned here that his ministry reached the rich and the poor, the high and the low, and the educated and the uneducated. And that one of his famous converts, and these were thousands of them, was Ugumbo Baleni, who became the first African Christian in Rhodesia and a convert of Mainza. He converted into the to Christianity under the missionary work of the famous London Missionary Society, and he became one of the key leaders there. And powerful stuff. This is history that you never get to hear about the work in Zimbabwe. Now, so the mission in Solusi, and I think typical of other mission societies, including the London Missionary Society, they used specific strategies to spread the gospel during that time. And like you rightfully mentioned, it was the mission station had to have an educational focus. Education. Yeah. And it had to have a health component, which is the health aspect. Then it had to have a nutrition aspect, which was your farming and your gardening. And then there was an economic element, because the mission station was to be self-sustaining and needed to teach people how to do things with their own hands. And that's how they then used those vocational skills to get people to self-support, but also to build their capacity to reach in the hinterlands. And so the other work that you talk about here is the work that was done beyond Solusi Mission by Spalding, and also I think there's the Somabula and the Lower Gwelo mission stations.
Yeah.
Talk to us about those stations, because now this is into the country.
Yes.
You're moving into the central Midlands.
Yes.
How did we come about with the Gwelo, Lower Gwelo, and also there's a school named after Anderson?
Yeah.
In Gwelo.
Yes.
Yeah. How did the work get into the Midlands?
All right. So also to throw into one of the another name of interest, African pioneers at Solusi. His name was Chabang. Alvin Chabang. They called him Father Chabang.
Yes.
This guy spent nearly 100 years at Solusi, working in Solusi.
Yeah.
That
He saw it from just being a basic.
When the 1898 and the 1895 missionaries came, he's the one who actually opened the gate for them when he was just a
little boy to the farm,
and he stayed there until he died. Over 100 years. Yeah. Over 100 years.
Yeah, and he's known to be the father actually of African mission support. So the Lower Gwelo, the work moving forward.
Yes.
Somabula Mission.
Yes. So that was in that was 1894 Solusi, right? So 1901.
Yes.
Frank, what's his surname? You know, some of these names, there's too much in the head. Some of them, but his first name was Frank. I'll think of the name. It will come.
Frank Armitage.
Armitage, yes. Armitage. So Pastor Armitage is the one who said, you know what? We are clustered here. We are clustered here.
Yeah.
And we need to take this gospel further up.
Yes.
He's the one who took it to the Midlands. He's the one who took it to the Midlands.
We need to highlight the people that helped him, because he didn't do it alone. He did it with a few Africans. You write in this book and you say there was Isaac Xiba and Sibakobe Chuma.
Yes.
Of course, the famous John Mainza.
Yes.
Who was there as well. And Armitage was doing it with his wife.
Yes. The wife was always there.
Yeah.
So you see, these guys.
And even Anderson, when he went to Monze, he was with a couple of Ndebeles as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the trick was this: these missionaries, for them to be accepted, they needed to move with the locals.
Yes.
And again, for the issues of language.
Translation.
So for them to be embraced, they were being embraced at the back of
Africans who were in the forefront.
So when people would see Africans, they're seeing their brethren.
Yes.
Oh, who is this guy who's got African? Then they can also embrace him. So that was the thing. So they went there. So you can see that all the missions in Zim emanated from Solusi. And these were Ndebele speaking. Even in Nyazura. The first black missionaries were Ndebele speaking. The first teachers were Ndebele speaking. So when they got there to Midlands, they started Somabula.
In fact, you say in 20... We're going to talk about this one a little bit more, because Nyazura is almost like a famous mission station in Mashonaland. But that was now Studuvet, isn't it? What's his name? Stadivan.
Yes.
Yeah, but we call him Studuvet.
Yeah, but our Gogos couldn't pronounce it properly. They were like, aye.
Yeah.
Studuvet.
So So he was with a gentleman named Mark Mlalas when they started that one.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about the Gwelo mission, because in Gwelo there were two mission stations they set up. There was the Lower Gwelo, the school, but also Lower Gwelo, there was a college they set up there.
Okay.
And then they set up Anderson, which was more for the white privileged school.
Yeah.
So again, going way back, our missionaries didn't run away from the fact that racism was always endemic.
It was a political thing all over Southern Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they embraced it. So okay, let's start with Somabula then.
Yes.
So that was in 1901, and then he moved with these guys from Solusi, the Africans. So when they got there, they did a couple of work in Somabula. So it was called the Somabula Mission, which then moved to its present site, and then it continued as Somabula until it got changed to Lower Gwelo in 1923.
Yes, it was a political change as well because names were changing.
Names were changing. And then the other thing again was that this was quite interesting because they were close to a railway where most of the letters would go there instead of so they had to change the name so that the letters would come to the right place.
Yes.
So Somabula
because Somabula was the other one that side. So it would, if it's coming from Bulawayo, the letters will be dropped early.
Yes.
If it's coming from Harare or Salisbury back then, it will pass Lower Gwelo, isn't it? Yeah.
So then they had to change and go to that new place where they are right now. So it was the Lower Gwelo valleys and stuff.
Yes.
And then so they gave it that name Lower Gwelo. So that was in 1923 then. So but then Lower Gwelo had a college because the work in the central part of Zimbabwe was stationed at Lower Gwelo. That was like the mecca of Adventism
for the blacks.
Yes. In the central part of the country. So Solusi was there. Yeah. Then this one was for blacks. Was specifically for blacks, and then that's how then work then went to the Masringos and the whole Hanke. From there it went to Hanke, 1911. Yeah. So from there the work went to Hanke. But in Gwelo there was Anderson. So Anderson was called Rubicon.
Okay.
Yeah, at first. Yeah. That one was strictly for whites. So it was a feeder for Helderberg.
All right.
So from Rubicon, when you go to secondary, you come this side to Helderberg's high school, and then to Helderberg College. Yes, that's how it was.
All right. Yeah. So the whites were setting up institutions for themselves and their own children.
Yes,
and of course with time, things changed. But there are a few Africans you mentioned here. In Zimbabwe, particularly in Lower Gwelo. We are now in the year 20. You mentioned here Umsongeli Dembe Mpofu.
Oh, yeah.
Who was father to one of the natives who worked very closely with the early missionaries in that area.
Yeah.
And also the paramount chief Mabuto Mkoba. All right. And these members were not, these people were not members of the Adventist church, but they made sure they supported. You talk about this decree here. He decreed that no one must be allowed to smoke and drink or misbehave while on mission campus because it was holy ground.
Holy ground. And this is not an Adventist, but most of his children went there and became Adventists. Yeah. So he is the one who's named after Mkoba, the suburbs. Yeah. The suburb.
Mkoba, yes. Yeah.
That's the man.
Now, what about the one who gets known to be the ringer of the golden bell?
It was his son.
Stephen,
yeah. It was his son.
Yeah.
And he was very popular for ringing the bell. Yes. The bell still stands, eh?
It's still there.
You go there, you'll see it.
Yeah.
Because this Dembele, the guy that you talked about, he's when I got there, he's the one who showed me around. Okay. He was telling me that my father actually built some of the huts that are here together with the missionaries.
All right.
So he's got some knowledge. So he took me around.
Yeah. So Lower Gwelo publishes produced some of the great Adventist preachers and teachers. I think you list some of them here. You say some of these workers who were buried at that mission cemetery include Pastor Jele. I think he died 2000. And then there was Pastor Ola Emambele, Mrs. Mlalazi Upepe. There was also Udoli Mbele Ni Matubeko. There was Thomas Mbele. And then you also mentioned here that there was famous black principals who led that school, the likes of Kachilenga, Nyati, A.P. Spanda, Usimela, Mlalazi, Alex Mazula, and a number of others, and that the Lower Gwelo Mission still stands up to today, over 100 years.
Yeah, it does. And I was shocked when I got there.
Yeah.
Like, it was a Friday, I remember, when I was doing the research for this sometime back in 2017.
Yeah.
It was a Friday. So when I was leaving, like, you could hear Adventist music, in the surrounding, in the homes that are close to the mission.
Echoing in the air.
Yeah, and you could feel this atmosphere, this Adventist atmosphere. Because Lower Gwelo is one place where they used to say, if you throw a stone and hit a church, you hit an Adventist church.
Wow.
The Catholics and the other churches tried to come in, but they could not. And it was just too dominant.
Yeah, it dominated the whole
But
area.
nowadays, but it's still dominant, but things have changed. I mean,
again, that's the evolution of the gospel work. It grows and it goes to different places. But if you look back where it came from, you'll pick up the essence of what it was.
Yes.
All of my fathers went to Lower Gwelo Mission.
All right.
Yeah, and if you didn't go to Lower Gwelo Mission back then, you didn't go to school.
For sure.
That's
everyone
what my father would say.
To be there.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to be there, to be a part of
Lower Gwelo.
Lower Gwelo,
And of course, with time, Anderson then opened up for blacks to come in, and now it's predominantly a black school as well. But there was also North, way up in Zimbabwe. There's Nyahuni later on, but there's Nyazura Mission, which is now in the Mashonaland hinterland, way deep there.
Yeah.
How did Studevant and his people get there? He went there with Mark Mlalas.
Yeah, Mark Mlalas. He's another African pioneer, and the Peter Faiz. People will be angry if I don't talk and mention Peter Fai Impof.
Yes.
So what happened was Stedvand or Stutved.
Yes, as they call
Stedvand.
Stedvand, yes.
He came to Solusi in 1902 because you see, Solusi was not a good place as far as farming was concerned. So it needed somebody who has knowledge in farming. Yeah. So he was the man. So when he came, he became the principal, and then Anderson had left. So so it was now him. Okay. So after some more, that was now around 1910. Around 1910. He then said, you know what, let's take this gospel, because Mashonaland was left. Matabeleland was covered, Midlands was covered, but Mashonaland had nothing. So then he decided to take it there. All right. So once again, took the African pioneers, the teachers that were there. Let's go, guys. And they went. And then they crossed over the Tsungwezi River. Yes. Then they started Tsungwezi. Actually, it was called Tsungwezi Mission. Yes. Yeah. It is
by the river.
By the river, yeah. Then it was not easy. It was not easy. It was tough. Because these guys had to use carts and stuff, and they were going. I think it took them quite a while to get there.
And many of them succumbed to malaria.
These fevers and those days.
Fevers,
yeah. Most people from overseas, they were not used to this malaria.
This hot weather. Yeah.
Most died.
Even the infrastructure they were building, because remember, it was Africans who were building for them. Yeah. That's some of the stories we don't even hear. The Africans were building huts, and most of our African huts allow things to move in and out, and many of them were being beaten, and there was also hunger that was happening. I read stories of how some of them would actually have their mouths so dry they couldn't speak. So it was not about colonialism that they were doing this for. It was about the gospel of Jesus Christ. So by the early 1900s...
Can I just throw something from what you've said, just to decolonize some minds? People say even Adventist missionaries came to steal the land and to make themselves rich, which is not true. Because if I showed you, my brother, the hut where Anderson lived, you and I cannot live in that. It was
it was almost like falling apart.
If it rains, it will just come in, because it was not.
It will wash out the wood.
Yeah, I remember his wife. Yeah, cried.
The stove.
So people.
That's the only thing that was left hanging. Eh?
And then, so people say things out of ignorance.
Yeah.
And those people are saying stuff, but people don't want to go back. And that's the beauty of history. It wasn't
about the riches.
These guys had left. These guys were living large in America, but they came here to become squatters.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the gospel's sake. And they never got, if I had time, I was going to, if it's in the book, where when they were, I think, in the Midlands.
Yeah.
There's a mission that they were, and then there was a sort of like a small river where these people were panning gold. And one of the ladies wrote to the General Conference that, we're having a problem of gold panners here. There's a lot of gold. Yeah. But we are not after the gold. We are after the souls.
The gold of the soul.
Yes. So these people had nothing to do. They could have enriched themselves if they wanted, but they did not. Yeah. But that was not the agenda.
In fact,
mission was the agenda.
They left Kimberley, left Johannesburg, the house of gold.
Yes.
Gauteng, the house of gold. Left Kimberley where the diamonds are. Walked through the desert of the Kalahari.
Yes.
The Kalahari desert. To reach the dry plains of Bulawayo. And from there they went up north, not even trekking the colonizers' board track.
Yeah.
They were going on a mission. So they find themselves in Tungwezi River. Tungwezi River. Yeah. This is 1911. They have 23 students enrolled. They are teaching them how to write and how to read. Yeah. And 12 of those 23 were coming from so far, they had to be boarders or to stay in the mission.
Yeah.
But in no time, that mission began to grow. But as it was growing, there were challenges. Talk to us about some of those challenges they faced and how they managed them. One of them, of course, was the outbreak, the drought and the disease outbreak.
Then the other thing again was the issue of the size of the mission was being cut because there were issues there. Some of them were political, and other missions were complaining, why is the Adventist Church getting so much land? They have 12,000 land that side, they've got this one there, they've got this one there, now they are,
So this is squabbles with other mission stations.
Yeah. So that also became a problem. Yeah. And the other thing, obviously, was the language. Because the first teachers there were Ndebele speaking. But then the good thing is that the tribalism at that time between the Ndebeles and the Shonas was not at that rife. So
it was there.
Yeah, it was there.
But it was not institutionalized.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. It was just the general hatred. But obviously, colonially, if you look back to the raids, the cattle raids, Nyazura was not affected by this. Yeah. So Ndebeles were actually foreigners in Nyazura at that time, and they were different people. Yeah. But there was an outbreak in 1914, which then, you say here, it really rendered Nyazura a very... It hit Nyazura very hard. Actually, they lost one of their principals, F.B. Jewell.
Sure, yeah.
And you also highlight that with more years coming on, some of the first black missionaries in Nyazura were people such as the Mberi family, William Mberi. I think I know his grandchildren.
Yeah, the Mberis, they are prominent names in the Adventism.
In that area. I even know the singing evangelist now. There was also Zachariah Mbengo Mtungwazi.
Mtungwazi, another
name, famous. Name. Yes. Yeah. Then there was Gibson Dumba.
Dumba is another big name.
Yes.
And was actually Pastor Dumba.
Yeah. And then Uzembe family.
Zembe,
Zephaniah Zembe. And these are famous names in the Adventist circles right now. There was also the Tsokas.
Yes, that's another name, a famous name.
Jonah Chumuka,
another one. Yeah.
Edward Janda,
yes,
and the Enoch Waungana.
Yes.
These were some of the first famous. There are many.
Yeah.
There are many. We could continue listing them, but there are so many great missionaries that came out of there, and they have defined the work as we know it in Zimbabwe. I think if you look at Solusi, you look at Lower Gwelo, you look at Nyazura. Those are the luminary institutions of Adventists. Are there any others and any significant ones that you would want to highlight?
I think those are the first and I can call them the greatest.
Yeah,
because Zimbabwean Adventism is what it is today because of those 3 or 4.
Yeah. Perhaps who were the first blacks to lead these institutions? Because back then they were led by whites. But then the blacks came on 1974. Later on. We're almost now into our generation. Kachengela. R.E. Kachengela becomes the first black principal of Nyazura High School. And then an interesting person you mentioned here, whom I know personally, Pastor Dampton Piri.
Okay.
He becomes a theology student at Solusi, but he was blind. Yeah. Special interests of people who are coming into... And in fact, he became the pastor to my wife. Oh. When I was courting my wife.
Really? Okay. That's
so I would go to his house, blind though he was, but he knew me. It's like he had seen me before.
People actually say the level of intelligence that man had is just out of this world.
Even his English. It's like he lived in America for many years. So these are some of the highlights. Now, they were also politicians who were involved in the country. We have not talked about Hunker Mission. We have not talked about other key luminary institutions perhaps that might have had. But I want us to bring it to a close. We've seen how it has moved from South Central to the North. The question I have is, unlike the South African Adventism where it came from, why is it in Zimbabwe it grew through education and not health systems?
Okay.
Because we have colleges in America, we have colleges for health. We had in South Africa, though it was erased in Sophia Town. But Zimbabwe has never had an Adventist healthcare institution. Why?
Okay, so the Adventists generally the mission was gospel work, preaching, but they would use three sort of like, can I say, arms or entering wedges. So there was literature, there was the health message, and education. Okay. So you realize that when they came to South Africa, they used those 3. But unfortunately for South Africa, all those 3 did not really
hit the ceiling, did not make the work grow.
Yeah, obviously because of apartheid. Then in Zim, they used 2. Literature and education. Why? So when Solusi came, these guys had to sit down and see the strategy that they have to use, because they were already against mission. There were already other mission societies that are actually onto health. So they realized that, no, these guys have been here for a while, so we can't compete with them. And the Catholics
were quite big as well.
Yeah, they were huge. So they're like, we can't compete with these guys. Yeah. So let's focus on education.
In fact, the first institution in my rural home in Zimbabwe was Nyazura Mission, which was a school. I mean, a hospital.
A hospital.
Yeah, that's where I was born. And so Adventists came in with the education. Nyazura Mission Adventist education.
So they were directly, they put all their resources into education. This is why there's more than 1,000 schools, Adventist schools in Zimbabwe.
Very powerful schools.
But no hospital. They had clinics here and there, and some of them just died a natural death. It's because our focus was mainly focused on education. That's the reason. But if you go to Zambia, they use the 3 of them, and they hit the ceiling, all of them.
Maybe that's why Zambia has grown so fast, even surpassing Zimbabwe. Yeah,
because of that. Yeah. So they embraced it all. The three entering wedges, they used them.
Brilliant. Now, I would go on with Zimbabwe for another hour or so, but I want us to wrap it up.
Oh, before we wrap it up, I think if we don't talk about John Luthuli,
we're in trouble.
We're in big trouble. In fact, some people won't know, but people with that have got misconceptions. You know.
So by John Luthuli, you're talking about the father of African politics in South Africa.
Yes.
The ANC.
Actually, they are the father of Chief Albert Luthuli. Aha. Yeah, so he was John Bunyan Luthuli.
Yes.
An Adventist missionary. The first teacher at Solusi. So your Chief Luthuli was born at Solusi Mission.
All right.
If you read Long Walk to Freedom by Mandela,
yes.
when you read where he talks about Chief Albert Luthuli, he says, the son of a Seventh-day Adventist missionary. He says that in clear words.
Wow.
So this is the guy. How did it get there? You see, I think it's good to say this because we are at a time where there is a lot of xenophobic issues in South Africa, and some of the church members are actually getting into this, Mabaham, things like that. But people don't know. This guy was South African from Natal. Luthuli.
Yes.
Luthuli is not Zimbabwean. He's South African. But then he had gone to Bulawayo for business.
Okay.
In the around 1893, there, 93, 94. He had gone for business. The time
when this mission is being established.
So I think it was 93, 94, because the wife then followed Mtonya, the wife Mtonya Luthuli. So he went there. I don't know why he stayed so long there, but he had gone for business. Oh, there was an outbreak, and the borders now it was issues and stuff.
Closed,
so it was now him and his wife there. Then the time when Anderson was starting the school, the Solusi school in 1905, he met him
and hired him to.
This guy had been he was well learned, he had been taught by some of these missionaries that were here in SA. So he has been a teacher. So I don't know who told him about him. So he met him, and he was a drunkard, by the way.
Okay.
So oh yes, now I remember now. What happened was this guy was a drunkard, so he kept on drinking to drown his sorrows.
And misery.
I don't know whether he wanted to come back to SA and he couldn't, I'm not sure, but he had issues. So then he called for a doctor. And one of the doctors from Solusi attended to him and told him that, you're actually killing your body because of this. You should stop this thing and you can be a great man. And he stopped and he became a great man. So when he went back, he's the one who talked to Anderson about Luthuli.
Okay.
I met this guy, well, Leonard, good man.
Yes.
But he's got issues of alcohol, but I think by now he's fine. So when he was looking for a teacher, he came and took him to Solusi, and he agreed. Yeah. So he becomes the first teacher at Solusi. Yes. And, they were using the book that they were using was actually the ground. So the students would write on the ground and then, But then the unfortunate part about this man is that he died in 1898. So he didn't last that much, about 3 years. 2-3 years. And when he died, he left an infant son, your Chief Albert Luthuli.
This is the man.
So Albert Luthuli, and he had another grown-up child who was there by the name of Albert. No, not Albert. What was his name? Alfred. Alfred Luthuli. But he's not mentioned. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he's still alive. But he was there a bit grown up, and he was also helping in the school. So then when he dies, this infant, he had been named Albert Luthuli. He becomes the ANC stalwart. And then in 1909, the mother, Mtonya, decided to go back to Natal, to Zululand. And then he goes with Albert Luthuli and Alfred. And then, I'm not really sure if she was really a staunch Adventist. Because now when they came to I don't know what happened, he became a member of another church. So he did not die an Adventist.
Yeah.
So Albert Luthuli cannot actually trace his Adventism because he does not even know how Adventism is like. But he was born at the mission, left as an infant.
Yeah.
Then when he grew up, he was introduced into another church. I'm not sure if it was the pressure from home. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Now, there are many stories we could tell of great Zimbabweans and great Africans who came through that mission station. It didn't. I think for me, it really did cover a greater part of the continent. I mean, I was quite moved by even the story of how the gospel went to Gokwe from Rhodes Day. Again, that's another story altogether.
My mother told me that one. She's from Rhodes Day, my mom.
Rhodes Day, yes.
They would say, like, when they're listening to a sermon or in church, they'll be like, Rhodes Day. I always ask, what's Rhodes Day? That's where Adventism was, pure Adventism. In fact,
from there, many Africans were Adventists, and when they went to different parts, I mean, you mentioned here Brown Ngube, who went to Gokwe, to Mtimtema, and even that time, that's how my family went to their current place where they were dispersed to. Because remember, again, typical of the white government then, Rosedale had become a famous African space where most people had received the gospel message out of Lower Gwelo. There was Anderson on the way roundabout there. And this place had become almost like a Christian community.
Yeah, almost everyone was Adventist.
Yes, almost everyone.
Yeah.
And then the whites came and said, we're closing all this. It's typical of Sophia Town.
Exactly. It repeats it.
It was a strategy, and they set up their own farms there.
Yeah.
And these people were scattered everywhere. And wherever they went, I always say as a public health specialist, people take their diseases, they take their cultures and their religion, and they go with it. And that's how Adventism then spreads the whole of Midlands into Mashingo.
Into Mashingo, yes.
Yeah. And now let's close this with your word, the mission in Zimbabwe and the church in Zimbabwe. It has been challenging since independence to grow the church. It has grown. It's perhaps one of the largest places where you find Adventism, where they have subsequently divided the country into 4 unions, as small as Zimbabwe is. Yeah. South Africa cannot at this stage have one union. That's why the Southern Africa Union covers Lesotho, Botswana, Namibia, and other places, just so they can have the status of a union. But Zimbabwe, as small as it is, a quarter, if not less, of the population of South Africa, they have 4 missions. 4 unions, I mean. The work has exploded there, but not without the economic challenges.
Yeah. In fact, when it was actually expanding, it was expanding under economic challenges.
Exactly. In the most difficult times.
You wonder how that happens.
I guess it's God's way of doing it. I'm not saying the economy of South Africa must collapse for them to grow, but we need to grow the church, because the gospel came from here into Zimbabwe. And it has grown. And from Zimbabwe, the cup overflew into Zambia. And Zambia now is on another level. They now have the first African Adventist president in HH.
Yeah, and also on that, you see, you see how powerful the Advent message was in Zimbabwe. It took even dignitaries and people in politics, powerful people, that are Adventists even to this day. So it was just moving like a veiled fire.
Yeah.
So that's something that's very powerful.
Yeah, and so the country has grown. The country has raised powerful preachers, powerful business leaders, and the country continues to thrive. And I guess the educational emphasis was the blessing for Zimbabwe. Because not only did we get educated in the country, but that's one of the greatest export Zimbabwe has sent to the world.
Exactly. It's
product of their educational system. And the education system in Zimbabwe is very deeply religious. It's Christian mission stations.
Yeah.
Most of the schools are run by one of the many major denominations in Zimbabwe. And so it comes with a very strong ethical and ethos. It's not just knowledge of what science is, but knowledge in the context of who God is. And that's a true light. That when a nation builds itself on true education, it becomes a luminary. I always wonder why Zimbabwe is being fought for and politically so activated globally. Perhaps one of the only countries in Africa right now who have American sanctions on them.
Yes.
I'm not getting into politics, but I'm simply saying, as small as that country is, there must be something about it. And if you ask me on another day, I could tell you education did not come with the missionaries, because Zimbabwe was run purely on an aristocratic system, which was a system of kingships. And so there was order, there was excellence in knowledge and skills, and those were remunerated very well by the kings. That's why missionaries would find people looking for gold, because we had an economy running.
Exactly.
And we had systems under the different kings who were one of the biggest kingdoms in Africa is the Mwenemutapa kingdom. Mzilikazi came with his Mtwaga as a nation. So we come from a very structured kingly state, which then enables the gospel in that environment to grow, because there's established systems of hierarchies. Maybe on another day we can talk about that. Thank you so much, my brother. This was useful. And to our viewers and listeners out there, I thought this was a very good discussion. Let us know if we've left anything you think is very critical. But again, we're profiling Adventist heritage in Africa and how the message spread from the Cape all throughout. And today, we have countries such as Zimbabwe boasting of over millions of Adventists. And thanks to Paul for the great work you have done. May the Lord bless you. Amen. Remember to like and to subscribe, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Thank you.